Oh, good morning, peeps. This is yet another almost response video to a video by Stanley Watson. Congratulations, Stanley. You have managed to keep my engagement at a very high level, and my partner really enjoys your content as well. That said, the video I was watching was on OnlyFans mothers. I recommend watching it. It's not really the precise and exact subject I'm going to be talking about. The precise and exact subject I'm going to be talking about is pornography and the sex industry from the perspective of a Generation X heterosexual male with an abnormally high sex drive and need for sexual engagement. Right, got that out of the way. By the way, my opinion on OnlyFans, I have a very limited monthly income, and there's Pornhub. Why pay for what you can just watch for free? Because I already have an intimate relationship emotionally and physically with my partner. So why would I need a fake intimate relationship with someone online? If I was single and had a monthly income, would I consider it? Yes, I would. You know, if I didn't have an intimate relationship with someone, I would consider it, but I do so I don't have the need. And I have close friendships with members of the opposite sex that my partner is mostly comfortable with, though she isn't. I tend to let cool down. When I was a lad, and I'm sure I'll get, okay, boomer. I'm not, I'm Gen X, get it right. When I was a lad, access to pornography was often in the open in newsagents on the top shelf. So at an early age, you'd see pictures of modestly clothed, by comparison to modern times, young models on the front with details of suggestive articles. You know, you're exposed to page 3 in tabloid newspapers. I can remember distinctly having cut out from newspapers pictures of my favourite models on my wall as a 12, 13-year-old boy. Your access in a decent parental household to pornographic magazines was railway tracks, waste ground. Yes, some of the pages were, yeah. Paper mache. Ew. Oh, a dreadful thing to look back on. Drink plenty of water, people, especially in this hot weather. And, you know, you'd take it home, shove it under your bed, and, you know, and there is this perspective that if you, moving on from teenage, I'm talking about my first experiences of it. Obviously, times have accelerated wildly. Pornographic content of a passive or interactive nature is freely available on computers, laptops, smartphones, right across the world. And from a male perspective, I know there are some women out there who will condemn their partner for even watching porn. My question, what are you doing? I mean, yes, if you're giving your partner half a dozen blowjobs and having sex 4 times a day, I would see your point. But if your sex drive is not as high as your partner's, or there are complications and you expect him not to watch porn but just to use his imagination, then I think you're asking a little much. I understand the perspective. It's a self-confidence issue, I believe. But all men are going to go on their smartphones and watch porn. What I think is wrong is to cross your partner's boundaries and expect them to act like these women on the internet do. Many of these women are irreparably damaged. And the fact that, as Stanley Watson brought up, some of them seem to think that creating adult content boosts their self-confidence. I find this interesting, to say the least. Sorry, picking my nose, bad habit. But no, this to me does not compute. You know, I watch porn. I freely admit to that. My partner knows I do. But I think for younger generations, to me, one of the most damaging things is how normal, especially on being an online sex worker, has become. And how young men, and indeed young women, now have certain expectations, even before they have sex, of what sex should be. I've got to be very careful here. I mean, I am influenced by what I watch. I want things that my partner is uncomfortable with, and I don't cross her boundaries. I keep my intimate areas in trim because of the influence of what I watch, probably. I feel uncomfortable attempting to talk about this, but we all need to occasionally move outside our comfort zones. But young men and young women whose viewpoint is that a lot of the extreme pornography that is freely available is what's expected of them, especially with inexperience and the general rough nature of teenage sex, from my experience. I believe it is doing irreparable physical and emotional damage to young minds who have not yet formed and developed well enough. And the fact that some of these people will then go on to produce their own content online, or indeed get into sex work thinking it's perfectly the norm. I mean, some people get into it because they were emotionally abused as a child and they're too broken to actually have a conventional career. I can understand that. But if you're clever talented, and not too mentally broken, why would you do sex work? I have limited experience. The only type of sex worker who I've seen would be street corner hookers in the town where I live, where we had a massive problem with them many years ago, and it's still there, it's just more hidden, until a certain serial killer, Steve Wright, not the radio run DJ, killed many young women in a murder spree, women that had families, many of whom were broken and drug addicts. That was a frightening time to live in Ipswich. As a man who would often walk alone to meet up with friends whilst this was going on, and who looks a bit alternative and maybe dark and dangerous, I could feel the eyes of even groups of women on me, and single women would be terrified. Did I take that personally? No, because I realised what was going on. The atmosphere in Ipswich at that time, until he was caught, was whoa. Yeah. It is a dangerous line of work, which is why I think many young women will do it online. Reasons for that I think young women fall back on this. College students. For years it is well known that ever since the introduction of student loans, what's going on there? Many young women from poorer families who want an education, who don't want to be working their butt off in poorly paid jobs, see it as an option. Some go further. There have been reports for a long time now of female students getting sugar daddies and doing full-on physical sex work in order to pay for their education. This will of course have long-term implications, especially if you're going to have children. It's whether or not you're willing to take the consequences of your actions that is the thing. Because as Sidney Watson pointed out, it is a fact of life that people are going to people. I love that phrase, Stanley. Thank you very much. And people will be judgmental and ostracise you for something they don't think is morally correct. It's a sad fact that we do have to allow for the fact that the majority of people think like that. Yes, I admire those who put forward the idea that people should be able to do what they want to do. But the more extreme these opinions become, the more the majority of the populace will push back. This is the truth. Yeah, I would say the majority that you see out and about, you can just tell them, in Ipswich, are young women with mental health troubles, who are addicted to drugs, who shoplift, who sofa surf. It's desperation, and this is the problem. Fundamentally, I believe in the regulation, proper governmental regulation of the sex trade. At the moment, it's just not talked about, it's hidden away. which leaves these women totally open to abuse, exploitation. I've seen it many years ago. One girl who would quite often proposition me when I was walking home drunk. I actually started making sure I wasn't carrying enough cash, just so I wasn't tempted when I was drunk. Crazy times. This hasn't happened for years. I very rarely go out at night these days to prevent the loss of control that comes with drinking too much. Yeah. Last time I saw her, she was with a pimp, basically. So no regulation. She was a drug addict. He was probably feeding her drugs and pimping her out. I don't think he would have treated her with any respect. There's always the possibility that he did, and then they got married pretty woman style and settled down, but I doubt that very much. You know, going back to that, I had some original hair. I think Pretty Woman did irreparable damage to young men and women's mind in a way. This is all to do with the ability to separate fantasy from reality. This has become a major problem in many factors of life, from pornography to life expectations to relationships. I separate relationships and pornography. Some people don't, and that is a problem. To, well, everything really. So the old joke about pornography has given pornography has given us unrealistic expectations of plumbers turning up on time. It's oldie, some way. And yet again, this is about boundaries, borders, control. I mean, let's face it, to get a little dark here, the inability to separate fantasy and reality has led to, especially in the United States, school shootings. Probably a number of sexual offences when it comes to pornography. And indeed, given many people unrealistic hopes of what they can achieve in life. Not everyone can be a star athlete and compete with the big boys. Not everyone can be an historical reenactor and compete with the big boys. Not everyone can be a successful influencer. I'm Gen X, so I don't like that word. Content creator? Yeah, whatever. And many people, when their dreams get shattered, have a very, very bad reaction to it, especially if there are mental health issues. And this can lead to some truly horrific consequences. We need to stop living in a fucking fantasy, people. Our planet is being irreparably damaged by greed. Our lives are being brutalized by a succession of governments. Our way of thinking is being influenced by crappy social media. We are being forced into buying products we do not need. We are being lied to, manipulated, and abused by extreme capitalism. People, we need to wake the fuck up. And soon. Because I do not like the direction society is heading in. I do not like the way geopolitics is heading. I do not like the way the environment is heading. I do not like the direction that the human race in general is heading in. So pick up litter when you're near a bin. If it's not yours, don't just kick it dismissively. Teach your child not to chase pigeons. Teach yourself to openly compliment other people in the street. You might make their day. Do charity work, volunteering. If you have the time, obviously. Treat your kids with respect if you have them. And think about the consequences of your actions as a parent, please. Because, especially, because I watch Simon Whistler's The Casual Criminalist, words are hard, channel quite often. And we see the example of the consequences of irresponsible parenting on young minds can produce some of the world's most dangerous and horrific monsters. I'm not saying it goes to that extreme. Not all the time. These are rare cases. Hey, just be groovy to each other. But stand your ground and fight back when needed. Appropriate, measured response. Take responsibility for your actions. Don't give in to demands you feel uncomfortable with. Don't let people into your space who make you uncomfortable. And if they are decent people, they will perhaps ask why you feel uncomfortable. And is there a way of compromise? Compromise is something more people need to be able to do. I've had a lot of trouble with compromise in my life. I used to believe never compromise, never back down, and all that kind of thing, which I think is very common and prevalent in today's society. My belief is right, your belief is wrong. Well, don't work like that. Yet again, wake the fuck up. As the late great Bill Hicks said, I'm just sowing seeds, hoping they sprout into something beautiful and glorious. For glory. I keep thinking of doing a Klingon cosplay. With my wrinkly forehead, it wouldn't exactly be hard, would it? Anyway, on that note, I think I'm going to leave this here because my voice is going. I've been doing too much. I might take a break for a few days, and I might take a break from watching inspirational YouTube channels for a few days because I need to slow my brain down without drinking vast amounts. And everybody have a peaceful and relaxing Sunday wherever you are in the world. Take care.